Hello, everyone. I'm so glad today to have a new episode of the podcast series Connecting Social Research to Society. I'm with you, Sari Hanafi, Professor of Sociology at the American University of Beirut and the founder of the portal for social impact of scientific research in/on the Arab world, portal called Athar. And from Tokyo today, I'm so honored to have with us Mostafa Khalili. Mostafa Khalili is an Iranian assistant professor of anthropology at Tokyo University of Foreign Studies. He was born in Tabriz, Iran, where Azeri was his mother tongue, Persian his national language, and Arabic his language of religion. Growing up among these languages and the world they opened profoundly shaped his thinking about identity, belonging, and the complex negotiations people undertake across culture and political boundaries. This early experience of living between languages and identity laid the foundation for his intellectual curiosity. He earned both his MA and PhD in Japan in 2015. His research focuses on Kurmanji-speaking Kurds in the three border regions of Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. Between 2017 and 2020, he conducted extensive fieldwork in this area, examining how ordinary people navigate overlapping loyalties, ethnic identities, and state structures, sustaining coexistence and ambivalence among ongoing tension. This research formed the basis of his forthcoming book, Everyday Ethnicity and Nationalistic Politics of Kurmanji-speaking Kurds in Iran. Khalili has held visiting fellowships at the London School of Economics and the University of Oxford, where collaborations in Kurdish and borderland studies continue today. So join me in welcoming Mostafa Khalili. Hello, Mostafa. Can we start? I mean, you grew up in the middle of 80s in Iran, a turbulent time, the Iranian war. And can you tell us about this period, particularly started as electric engineers, and what the hell to go to anthropology and history? So,
yeah. Thank you very much. It's my great pleasure to be speaking to the podcast, which is mainly targeting Arab world, and this is a great honor because we need much more dialogue within the Middle East between us. So first of all, I would really appreciate this. And first I should say I'm too young and at the very beginning of my career as a researcher. So it's great honor. And then going back to the story of 1980s, actually I was born in the time that my city Tabriz was heavily bombarded at that time during Iran-Iraq war. So my family got refuge in a village near Turkish border, our ancestral village, where the early years of my life was mix of being here and there. And then when that was 1980s, and the early years of my education in 1990s was a sort of Islamic republics, the time that it has consolidated itself thanks to the war. And I'm a sort of a children of revolution, we call it. That the first decade of revolution was too much filled by ideologies that the state wanted to create, so much of reform in the educational system. But at the same time, there was a continuity from Shah time as a secular education, but implementation of religion in it. And then, after I finished my high school, during my high school time, we were usually going to the mosque. That was coming from a working class family, that was the place for socializing for us during summers. Mosque with these Basij and this militia, this is a branch of Revolutionary Guards in all mosques. So that was the time that when I was a child, most of my time was being spent in the mosque and being confronted both by the state ideology, but plus with the religion, which was trying to, stay away from politics and accusing the governance to kind of monopoly the mosque. And so I was in between this, because my family, if I'm not making it too long, my family during the revolution time was more in the faction of, we had Ayatollah Shariat Madari, which was at first with Ayatollah Khomeini, but later on when the time of this supreme leadership and whatever came, he stood against. And sort of my family was religious, but not in line with the revolution. So in that sense, we were in the mosque from one side, state ideology, from other side, keep the religion, not to politicize it. So the point was that religion and ideology was at the core of my teenagehood. And then I became more interested in religious studies. When I finished my high school, I wanted to go to Qom to become mullah, or to get some a Sufistic traditional training there. But soon
in the houses.
In the house. But more in the, we have different traditions there, not in a, I was more into the Sufistic tradition. Poetry, Sufism, not in a sort of a orthodox way of religious school. But most of these different schools of thought are concentrated in Qom. So that was the early, that was my late high school time. So, but why I ended up in engineering, the story is, in Iran we have this entrance examination, and you choose whether to go to science and mathematics, or empirical science, or humanities. But we choose this path when we are entering to high school. So when your high school is in science and in the science, you have to choose you have to take part in entrance examination to become whether engineer or like a pure scientist. So I was in that track. So I took the entrance exam, and then I got accepted in electrical engineer. So I said, okay, let's start it. But soon I got disappointed that this is not what
But you finished your study, no?
Yeah, from the second year, I came across with mainly Western philosophy. After being exposed to Islamic philosophy, then later on Western philosophy. So I was voluntarily taking part in the philosophy classes in my university. And then I decided to change my major to give up everything, and at that time I wanted to go to India to study philosophy there and this, and but I couldn't, mainly because of financial issues. So later on I decided to finish this to probably at least secure some job in future. But it was really difficult because I was in telecommunication engineering, and this is not easy. So mainly my bachelor's time I was spending more time in humanities department as just voluntarily attending classes. So this was the start of my academic passion into humanities.
But you didn't do any degree in Iran, so how come you end up in Japan?
Yeah, good. When I finished this engineering, I took part in entrance examination for masters mainly in philosophy, Western philosophy, and wanted to pursue there. But at that time, I felt that I want to broaden my worldview. I started to hitchhike in the Middle East.
Oh, wow.
And I hitchhiked from Tiflis to Antalya, to Antalya, and then inside Iran and some parts of Turkey. And then I became more interested in anthropology, cultural studies, and then I returned back to Tehran, stayed there for a while in the sociology department. I came across to anthropology specialists, and then that was the time I made my mind to change my major, but I decided to go outside Iran. And then what brought me to Japan was mainly I applied to different places, but because of lack of background, I had some papers in Persian or some drafts in English, but I couldn't convince good universities here and there, and then to get funding. And
I imagine there is a restriction for Iranian student to go and study abroad, no?
I mean,
in Europe, for instance, I know you are talking in the middle of, not in the middle, in around 2000.
2015.
Yeah.
10s, 15s, yeah, that time.
Yeah, so it was really difficult for Iranian to travel. I mean, the visa, no?
Yeah, I think it has been difficult always, and at that time it was more difficult. I think because it was the time of President Ahmadinejad, and tensions were on high, and so Japan was not like this, and Japan. I was interested in Eastern culture, East history, and all those stuff. So I applied to one school in Kyushu in southern Japan, and there were apparently some professors who reviewed my documents. They were interested in Middle East stuff. And they gave me a chance, that I got full tuition exemption and with a very small scholarship. Then I took my backpack and just...
you came to Kyoto.
Yeah, I know, it was in southern Japan, Kyushu.
Kyushu.
Yeah, a small university for masters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up there. And that was fascinating. My first time to go outside of the Middle East, but I ended up in the East, Far East, which was a rare trajectory. But I appreciate it now.
So you were as a research interested in. I mean, I would say counterintuitively, you are Azeri, but you were interested in Kurds, and particularly in the question of borders and in relation to Kurd in Iran and in Iraq, a specific Kurd in in Azerbaijan, Iranian Azerbaijan. Can you tell us a little bit about your research on this?
Yeah, sure. Actually, as you mentioned in the introduction, I am born in a place in a periphery of Iran that you encounter different languages, different cultures, and I am from the almost border area. We have border of Armenia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Iraq. So it's a region that's surrounded by different national identities and different cultural identities, different languages. And then first I started to understand ethnic boundaries of Azerbaijanis. So I worked on for my master's on understanding how ethnic identity has been developed in Iranian Azerbaijan compared to post-Soviet Azerbaijan.
Which is really very different, no?
Yeah, indeed. Very different than the Kurdish case that I later on moved on. Later on, I became interested in the Kurds because I started with Azeri Kurdish boundaries, but I found Kurdish case very complicated. That you can't really understand the Kurds without understanding the all the history. So I went back. I started with the Kurds in city, but I realized that I have to go to border to understand because they just came to, for example, most of them are newly urbanized. Then you go to border, you see that the roots are on the other side of the border, and you cross the border and you are in Iraq, you are in Turkey. So that's how this when I try to conceptualize how I'm looking at the region, I try to go beyond we call methodological nationalism, not to take the states as unit of analysis, but to take the people and the region as unit of analysis. And it opens up a new ways of understanding intergenerational difference, regional difference, cultural difference, and the politics. So this is how I'm still navigating in the border regions, at least dealing with 4 or 5 countries in that part of the world.
Yeah. While we were conversing before coming to the interview, you have a really very interesting comment in order to understand today Kurdish national aspiration. That in fact it was so important in Turkish Kurdistan, in Iraqi Kurdistan, but much less in Iranian Kurdistan, and it's related to how the Iranian, the Persian empire has been constructed vis-a-vis or compared to the hardline nation state established post Sykes-Picot, or Can you tell us, because I found it really very interesting your approach to this.
Actually, nowadays, this Kurdish studies has become a hot topic, especially after Syria war, after Daesh in the region. It captured mainly the media attention and lots of academic attention. But I'm not a Kurd, and as an outsider, when I went to region and when I exposed to myself to the Kurdish studies scholarship, which is mainly today being promoted in the West, or being created by Kurdish scholars, but with the Western sociological lens. So I had difficult time to digest what's going on in this atmosphere, because most of the Kurdish studies scholars are coming from Turkish Kurdistan. It has a dominancy. And then when we are talking about Kurdistan or Kurdish studies, when the departure point is being a Kurd, I see that they start from Kurdishness and they try to say, look, this, for example, like this history of exclusion or ethnic sort of discrimination, all these things happened in Turkey, for example, and then they try to apply the same lens to Iraq, to Syria, and to Iran. And then some go far ahead, and then they use some even theories which are being used for Palestine, like some post-colonial theories, like internal colonization and those stuff. But you hear these stuff, you come back to the field, and you interview with the people, you try to understand, and you see many of them are like, are not grounded theories that we try to impose on the region, or we see because of the Kurdishness that we are like, because of the Kurdish history that has been experienced in one region, intellectually we try to start from that and try to kind of expand it to other regions. Whereas especially, for example, going to the Iranian side of the border of Kurdistan, we see that the way that Iranian Kurdish language, culture, customs have been perceived or imagined in Iranian culture is very different than in Turkey. And then the political pressure that in Iran the Kurds has faced is very different than Saddam Hussein's Iraq,
Absolutely.
or even before that. So the question is it enough to say that categorizing one group as a Kurd, even though their language also is different, it's not easy to define.
Yeah, I noticed that your research specific group, Kurmanji.
So they are, this Martin van Burensen has a good quote in one of his articles. He's like one big figure of Kurdish studies, a Dutch anthropology. He say it's more than 40 years I'm studying the Kurds, and I still don't understand who the Kurds are and what do they want, because internally they are so diverse. But the point is that what are we talking about the Kurds when we are, taking Kurdishness as a unit of analysis? In my scholarship, in my works, I try to question these categorizations that sometimes prevent us to understand, because we are labeling one group, we are trying to understand them with one label, and then it prevents us to be curious, to know how people live in the region. So back to connecting this to your question, like when we are talking about Iran, we have a historical continuity from empire to nation state. There is no rupture here, or at least like a not comparable rupture to what happened to Ottoman, right? So this tolerance that probably Ottoman Empire was very tolerant to ethnic and religious diversity.
The
Millat system. So Iranian also, like Qajar Empire was like that. Qajars were Azeris, they were not Persians. Before that, Safavid were Azeris, I don't know others. So this sort of, identification based on ethnicity perhaps is not that deeply rooted in the Iranian border side, whether we are talking about Iranian Azeris or Iranian Kurds. Whereas you cross the border, you go to Turkey, ethnic lines have been too much hardened, especially since the 1920s, 1930s. And the Iraqi side, imagine like over a century of armed resistance and the bombardment, genocide, chemical attack. So, and then Syrian side, another story. So the point here is that, again, I don't want to say that let's deconstruct Kurdishness and then make categories of Iranian Kurd or I don't know, Turkish. I go deep further and I say even within Iran, we have again another categories. Kurmanji-speaking Kurds, Sorani Kurds, this and that. So here, the point is that is not that we can we cannot talk about categories. My point is that in order to understand the problem, we have to start from the ground to see when ethnicity appears, when it disappears, instead of bringing ethnic question to the people to impose. If you look for ethnicity, you will find it. So that's what I try to do, not to look for ethnicity, but to observe.
And this is why, for instance, Kurmanji Kurd in Azeri, they have a specific feature of identity which is different from those who live, for instance, in Iranian Kurdistan, no?
Yeah, of course. I would here say that, maybe even narrow it down. When we are talking about Kurmanji Kurdishness, of course, there are different forces that, at the same time, in different layers or different angles, they unite people under certain category or certain identification force, and at the same time another diverges them. For example, in the borderland, imagine one family has been divided to 3 countries. Familial tie, let's say, or religious Sufistic tradition, Naqshbandiya, unites them. Whenever something happens, they don't care about the border. But when it comes to, for example, educational system, you see that the new generation, cross-border marriages are decreasing because each part is being exposed to different nationalizing forces. But at the same time, we have these intra-Kurdish differences, Sorani, Kurmanji, Zaza, this, that. So when it comes to a big image of Kurdishness, these people converge, especially at the time of war, trauma. But when it comes to another occasion, or even within the same social phenomena, they, at the same time, simultaneously, they converge and diverge. So this is the point that I try to highlight in my research. I try to understand this from, not from rational choice perspective, not from political choice, political groups choice perspective, like, for example, strategic choice or rational choice, but from social psychology, trying to highlight that competing and contesting identities for the marginalized people coexist at the same time without resolving these contestation or conflict. For example, when we are talking about Iranianness and Kurdishness, big Kurdistan, Iranian Kurd, Sorani Kurd, Kurmanji Kurd, each have different forces, which when we look from political choice, you have to, it's an either or question, right? You have to do this. But when you start from the people, it's not either or question.
And absolutely, and this is, remind me how in the region they construct who is Palestinian, and it become like you should choose either you are Jordanian or Palestinian. You cannot be both. You cannot be Syrian and Palestinian, like my case, for instance. And this is really, it's even some activists and some scholars think like people will be schizophrenic to have a two national identity, I would say, even not national and ethnic identity and religious identity. I mean, people can handle multiple social identity without feeling any schizophrenia or something like that. Yeah. So you agree with me, no?
Yeah. This is fantastic case. I think your case is probably much more vivid to argue compared to the, like, as you said, like, for example, national versus religious identity. But how people handle these two identities at the same time, it reminds me of Professor Hajj work,
Ghassan al-Hajj,
on Lebanese diaspora in
Australia.
Australia, and he uses the term of blinking identities.
Exactly.
At the same time, they are Lebanese and Australian in a blink of eyes. So if we try to understand this, that we human beings are not rational creatures, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
From psychology literature perspective, this is a basic,
right?
Yeah. We are not rational, but when it comes sometimes to political science, sometimes to sociology, we try to label and say that no, if you don't fit in this category, you are schizophrenic. No, why not? We love the person the most that we hate the most. We don't love a stranger and hate at the same time. But our love object, when we get angry, we will hate the most. And these two come like a sort of contrasting emotions even coexist. I mean, I'm particularly focusing on conflicting and contrasting emotions, not coexisting ones. You know, coexisting is, you say, being Jordanese and the Palestinian can coexist. But being a pan-Turk and pan-Iranian are very opposing, for example. But what I see on the people, imagine I'm telling you one example of my informal conversation in Hakkari, southeastern most border of Iran, Iraq, Turkey, in Turkish side. A group of cousins are arguing. One's father is in prison because of being a PKK supporter. The other is following these neo-Sufism paths that the Turkish government is empowering in the region. And they are from Kurdish, very Sheikh Ubaidullah Nahri, the first Kurdish nationalist who made a revolt against both Ottoman and Qajar in 1881, descendant of this figure. They are like divided into different groups and they are discussing. And then during discussion, when they were talking in Turkish, talking about PKK, they used the term terrorist. Because the Turkish government uses. And then when they switch the language to Kurmanji, the same conversation, they use the hero or how to say, the national, like the freedom fighter, guerrilla, like these stuff. But this is same conversation, same person, and their PKK, for example, use their home, their territory, and they are not happy about it because their everyday life is being like kind of, disturbed. But at the same time, they do respect them. So, but these feelings for them, like that somebody is both freedom fighter and also against it, we want free. So this coexists in the very same conversation for the same person. You don't need to even move to another. So look at the other example in the Iranian part, in a city, Urmia city, where Azeris and Kurmanji Kurds are together. These Kurds are trying to promote sort of imagined bigger Kurdish community, bigger Kurdish imaginary, pan-Kurdish imaginary, to counter hegemony of Azeris in a city. that is, almost half and half Azeri and Kurd. But at the same time, this pan-Kurdish imaginary has nothing to do with Iranianness, right? But at the same time, because they see that the central government is Persian-oriented and the central government promotes ethnic diversity, the same Kurds approach to the Revolutionary Guard in the center in Tehran to get support to beat Azeris in a city that are dominating them. You see, at the same time, they are using pan-Kurdish imaginary plus pan-Iranist imaginary with the same local political field, because each of these forces are serving different aim or serving their local aim. That is, where is my right in this city? I want to be visible, I want to have political... So they don't really care if being pan-Kurdish, holding pan-Kurdish political agenda has nothing to do with getting support from Revolutionary Guard. And this is not only a political strategy. This is something that they do believe that they are a part of Iranian mosaic of ethnic diversity, and they want to fight for their right. But at the same time, they are a part of a big mosaic of Kurdishness. So these conflicting and competing imaginaries coexist for them, and they don't feel that this is a controversy. They feel this is my everyday life.
I didn't want to interrupt you a few minutes ago to tell you when I started teaching at the American University of Beirut, I have my student puzzled with my accent, say, from where are you? Who are you? I mean, what is your nationality? So I used to say, I am Palestinian during the day and the French in the evening. So you're like, I mean, to break this monotonic identification that they have. I have still a few questions. One of them, Mostafa Khalili, is about your experience as anthropologist conducting fieldwork in a different location, and particularly, I mean, Iran, Iraq, Turkey. I mean, do you feel? I mean, first of all, the question of positionality, whether also you have a challenge, for instance, conducting fieldwork on Iraq, and you are Iranian, Azeri, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about, if you like, being anthropologist of field?
Yeah, well, honestly, it's not really easy to navigate through these three different contexts and three borders, three countries, and each place, my positionality plays a different role. For example, in Turkey, probably it's the easiest place for me to conduct field work because from the government point of view, Turkish government is not that much sensitive to Iranian citizens, and the people there, like in the Turkish side, they of course, my positionality as an Azeri probably imposes this sort of how to say it, imposes this position to me that I'm having a sort of a Turkic identity, promoting Turkic identity. So that's why in Turkey the challenge is more of how to put my Turkicness away, or how to make people that, look, I'm here to understand you, I'm a supporter of Kurdish, like a sort of a national movement and all these stuff. Whereas in Iraq, the situation is very different. I'm not being labeled as Azeri, but as an Iranian. And then the security forces are very sensitive because Iran has its hand all around Iraqi Kurdistan. Again, which part of Iraqi Kurdistan? In the southern part in Suleymania, it's easier than in northern part, which
Erbil.
is more. Yeah, Erbil is closer to Turkey. So it really depends. In Iraq, I have more issue with the state, not with the people. And people treat me as an Iranian, and they try to speak me in Persian. Because many of them have been refugee or used to be refugee in Iran for a long time. Many speak Persian. In Turkey, my Azeriness is the label. I have to deal with it. In Iran, I have to deal with everything, both with the state and with the people.
I can imagine.
It's more difficult.
So, I mean, in your study, particularly, you talk about concept of ambivalence from social psychology. You take it from social psychology to let us understand this simultaneous coexistence of competing and contested forms of belonging. How your work has been perceived, because you researcher talking about ambivalence. I mean, in academia, this is, if you like, accepted, etc. But maybe social actors, when they saw that you portray them not in nationalistic terms, or I don't know, or ethnic terms, they were how your work has been perceived in the region, if you like.
Honestly,
especially you were in London. I imagine there where you have a more encounter. You are hidden now in Tokyo. I mean, I'm not worried about you being here. But when you were, for instance, in Oxford, in London School of Economics, I mean, did you encounter? I mean, people are not happy how you.
Yeah, exactly. Our field of study is so much, unfortunately, politicized, and especially this Kurdish studies is full of like a sort of nationalistic agenda. So it's a very politicized field that people are not happy when you are talking about ambivalence. They prefer you to talk about how state is suppressing this, that, and then everyone expects me or the work, ethnographic work, to talk about how state is suppressing and this and that. So there is very little space to understand nuances on the ground. Our job here is we are academic. We are not here to be the very active agent of change as activists. So that's why I get sort of criticism both from Iranian Kurdish studies scholarship, which criticize that your work doesn't emphasize enough of the state's suppressive force. You are going to the people's identity and those stuff, which perhaps is true, but I say, we have enough articles that talking about structural issues. I don't have I'm not counter-arguing that there is a structural violence, state violence on the Kurds. There are being marginal, but it is. I don't want to stop the conversation there. This is the start of conversation.
Exactly.
So let's see how and what and to what extent compared to where. Are we gonna compare this to Israel-Palestine and to call Iranian Kurdistan as internal colony?
Yeah.
This is what today is being too much promoted in Iranian Kurdish studies, which I think I don't think it's a fair analysis. There is a degree of separation. You cannot really compare Iranian Kurdistan's suppressed identity with Iraqi Kurdistan during Saddam, and you can't understand all Kurdistan. You can't compare all Kurdistan to Palestine. I mean, there are degree. We can get what is so. And this is how it is being perceived outside, but inside in the region, in Iran or Turkey or Iraq, honestly, the thing is that each ethnic group tries to interpret the work on their own. And since I started to work on the Kurds, my Azeri community, which I come from in my city, they are not happy with me. They are excluding me, labeling as having a pro-Kurdish agenda. And the Kurds are suspicious that why are you studying? So this is the anthropologist. I think we witnessed Fariba Abdelkha. She talked about these things recently in Tokyo. We were together, and I'm similarly.
Mostafa, you work also in question of human rights in Iran and how Ayatollah Musbahi, who is a leading figure of the Iranian revolution, become theorizing something like instead of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a kind of Islamic declaration of rights and duties or obligations. Can you tell us a little bit what is going on? Try to question the universalization of the declaration, and so.
I think if we look at how Iranian, whether religious intellectuals or theologists have encountered Western ideas, I think there is an interesting way that probably it goes back to the history of Persia, intellectual history in the region. That we see there is an Ayatollah which is from a sort of a pretty conservative Ayatollah. Why he needs to deal with something which is a sort of secular Western concept? This is way that I take this for granted. I say that look, in Iranian and in Iranian Hausa, in Iranian theologies, they don't, we call in academia, desk reject other ideas. They bring it to the table. They try to engage in dialogue, which this part, I think it's good. We cannot really in this in this world, we cannot sit and say that no, I just go to Hadith or Quran and I don't care about what's going on in the. So I think that there are lots of signs that in Iran, different ayatollahs are dealing with universal, so-called universal concepts that are sort of trying to be imposed to all countries. But in the work that I engage with, particularly Ayatollah Misbah, is the question of how to engage. So his engagement, I do admire the engagement, but the engagement is, he brings a counter, version that, okay, if you have this one, we will make the Islamic one. Then, for example, what I'm trying to think more and learn and discuss with you, hopefully later more, is that the question of how we can engage with some concepts that are being claimed to be universal, but we don't find them that much applicable to our concept, to our culture, or why should we take it as it is being generated elsewhere? Who says what is universal? From like whose eyes, you know? So this is what I'm very interested, but I'm not sure if giving a counter declaration of Islamic version is the best way of how we should, you know.
You know, if you ask me my opinion about that, I think to have a universal declaration of a human right is something really very important, and this is because it's based on the question in the notion of humanity, and the humanity is very important. Humanity, why Mostafa Khalili got a scholarship in Japan, if you like. Otherwise Japan will deal with Japanese and Iran with the Iranian, and or even Muslim, if you like, and the Japanese with the Buddhists and Shinto people, etc. So to have a universal declaration of human rights is really extremely important, and with the one condition, to understand it in an abstract way and not in a concrete way. I mean, what the meaning gender equality, which is enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you need to have an Iranian system to how translate this into a workable and operational concept of gender equality. The same thing for France, the same thing for Japan, and so on. Now, having said that, I also admit that a Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which it was so important in the time post Second World War, where the state, the Nazism, the fascism is really dominating over the individual, to highlight the importance of the moral autonomy of the individuals, and so everything is about the individual, if you like. Now, whether we need to inject some communitarian notion in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I think this is legitimate. And one of the, if you like, an idea that raised by Misbah Ayatollah, but also by the Moroccan philosopher Taha Abdel Rahman, that I work on him, that to remind that what about the moral responsibility? What about our duty, and not only right? Not everything is about where is my right, but also where is my duty and social responsibility, and moral responsibility. So it's illegitimate. So it's illegitimate to question some notion, etc. But we researchers will be very careful to see also what is the finality of this project. I mean, whether this project will be to emancipate women rights or to subjugate women. And I think your work is really very important. This is, if you like, in how you end up with the conclusion. I almost fully agree with your conclusion, if you like. But I mean, the process, if you like, I would leave more maneuver to inject some communitarian liberal values in my language, if you like, which something is not, by the way, the Muslim do it only like him and Abdul Rahman, but also all the communitarian liberals, Michael Sander, Etzioni, Tyler, Charles Tyler, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. This is this is what I also think that we should open up the space to see that what we can really, how we can modify, how we can think that as you brilliantly mentioned that what is the duty, what is the communal in this individual human rights declaration, that everything is what as an individual I do. So when it comes to community, and especially if these things are being discussed among different theologists, even from various religions, like a so-called interreligious communication, and come to a sort of, we call tasahul or tasamuh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this is what we actually need, instead of like just labeling that no, this should be, or forcing some countries or cultures to do this or not to do this. Just to come to open up the table, put the ideas, and to see where is the common ground, instead of focusing on the differences. We can find a lot that we share. Actually, this is what I find in Iran every year. There is one like a conference of interreligious communication. They try to, in a way, it's such a big country, but we have Jews in Yazd. They live there. We have Zoroastrians.
Absolutely.
We have, I don't know, in my
Baha'i.
city, Tabriz. Baha'i is a bit controversial issue, but there is a common ground for this, but we need to open up, not from the perspective of imposing power, whether political power or intellectual power. If we start only from the Western philosophical point of view and look down at the Eastern tradition, whether it's Islamic, Buddhist, Shintoist, here and there, then it will not lead us to anywhere. And this is what I like in your entire project, which is promoting dialogue.
Thank you, Mustafa. Mustafa, what's the meaning? We talk about Mustafa, Iranian, Azeri, doing fieldwork on Turkey and Iraq. What about, being a professor here in Japan? What kind of challenges, for instance? What kind of things you will tell the Arab world? Our main audience. Being an Iranian in Japanese academia.
Oh, this is a pretty rare case, but I would say it's really challenging because I have lived in Japan for 11 years now, but when I see anyone from, let's say, India to the Latin America, they come to Japan and I try to introduce them to Japan, or like take a friend around, I categorize myself into their category, even though we just met, for example. Whereas I lived here for 11 years, I can't categorize myself in the Eastern. So there are like challenges, differences, which goes, I think, which is...
Is it, we talk about a very collectivist society, but collectivist in a sense of communitarian that exclude the outside? How?
No, I think this is more of, it's not the exclusionary part of it. Perhaps it goes to Confucianist way of communitarism, or Abrahamic way of, I don't know, how we the conception of the world. I don't know. We cannot really essentialize these divisions. Divisions are there, I would say, but I cannot really categorize it how. But in Japan, I would say that perhaps the difference of Japan with the other Eastern countries is that here the communal identity has been institutionalized through schooling. It's not only the something which is rooted in the history of the region, because if I see one individual, I would definitely say if he is Korean, Chinese, or Japanese from their even how they dress or how they behave. And so Japan is a sort of exception in that sense that you have to channelize yourself. And I have lived here perhaps long time, and I have been so flexible doing, ethnographic work in different cultures. I've learned how to be part of community, but perhaps in Japan I'm less part of community than when I'm in Kurdistan. So it's far more challenging, but still I would say it's a very unique experience that, I would always tell to myself, like, working or living in the West or in the Middle East is something that perhaps it is for many people, but living and working in the East is a unique thing that I learn a lot, and there are lots of things that we should learn from how Japanese are caring about others. Like, this is an American system, but I mean on the paper, but on the practice it is very communitarian, and how people care about each other, insurance system, I don't know. It's not at all.
And the politeness. I mean, the Japanese politeness. I'm amazed how nice, how smiling, I mean, every time I want to ask something, despite the fact that they don't know English, I see them. They open their mobile. They try to understand you or let you write what you want. I am amazed by this kindness, if you like, politeness. So.
And honestly, I haven't faced any sort of institutional discrimination here for living and working here for a long time. I have been treated fairly, which is really good, maybe counter to my experience in other part of the world, that I felt that institutionally there is some sort of differences of where you come from. In Japan, especially if you learn the language a little bit, then I think it's receiving, unlike the image that we have that it's exclusive. But I'm saying in institutions that I have worked, I've seen that it's very merit-based. Academia especially is not being poisoned by neoliberalism. They still value knowledge. In my department, there are people working on Tibetan dead languages, and they do respect. I mean, when there is a financial support for universities, scholarship, they are fair to humanities, and they distribute fairly. So I see that the knowledge is being well respected in this country. It's not that,
My last question to you, Mostafa. I mean, how would you disseminate your knowledge beyond academic circle? First, for instance, are you interviewed here in Japan when there is an issue related to Iran? For instance, when Israel bombarded Iran, do you have do you think about disseminating your work on ethnicity, for instance, in Kurdistan, how would you be sure that this knowledge is not only imprisoned in a journals read by specialists?
Yeah, yeah, good question and challenge for me. I try. I haven't, because the topic is so sensitive. So I have to navigate how to, how to encounter the public. So that's why I have been a little bit conservative. In this sense, especially when it comes to the region's media. I'm not talking about the state. The state doesn't sanction you as the people does, the people,
absolutely.
how you are being mistreated, labeled by. So whenever there is a heated political time, unfortunately, I try to keep calm, because I know that it's polarized, and whatever you say, it will deepen the polarization. So how I try to navigate this is through some weblogs. We have, for example, LSE weblog for the public, and also some interviews with, like I had interviewed during the war with Italian newspaper, Chinese newspaper, Japanese one, and also some think tanks here and there. But directly going to the public, I think I still need to grow up my scholarship more to be strong enough, because I'm not yet ready for the for that fight. But I'm doing my best, and I hope I can also interact more with Arab world, and fascinating. This is what I like in your scholarship, that you try to make in Japan they call core to core connection, not periphery to periphery. So they say we have to make a core to core. So Arab Persian, Arab Turkish, Arab. So these connections we need to make. I hope one day we learn each other's language more fluent than
absolutely
learning. Yeah.
And really, this is I found the lack of contact between Iranian scholar and Arab scholar is outrageous. I am part of a group where we did almost 5 years in a row meetings every year, Iranian, Turkish, and Arab scholar. So we met in Iran once, in Turkey, in Lebanon. I invite them to EUB. Said Farid Attas, for instance, was one of the leading figure. Sayyid Hussein Shahzadi, Javad, and so on. I mean, there is really very interesting scholar, and I hope, if you like, and this is why I want you to include you in my podcast, because really I want to know the people from the Arab world that there is Iranian working on us also, and this is, we need to talk with them, we need to invite them, we need to converse with them, and this is, if you like, the objective of
This is great initiative. I do admire what you are doing. I hope, and in cultural atmosphere, I see in Iran this is happening. Some artists are making songs together with Arabs, Armenians, Turks, but we are a bit lagging behind in academia. I really appreciate that you took the lead to make these core to core connections, and we have to continue. This is what we need, really much more than everything else, in order to make a peaceful and understanding coexistence in our region.
Mostafa Khalili, thank you so much. I really enjoy talking with you. Thank you all for listening to us, and hopefully to see you in other podcasts of connecting social research to society. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you indeed. Salam.